Hello and welcome to my channel. In this tutorial, I'll show you the ingredients, recipes, and consistencies for the Shelly Art style bloom technique. Let's get started. There are 3 layers of paint with different ingredients and consistencies that interact with each other. I'll use a consistency table like this to help demonstrate. First, I'll make the cell activator because it's the easiest. Next, I'll mix the pillow paint and show you how to thicken it if needed. And the last step will be to mix the paint colors to a consistency in between. I'll make the cell activator with Australian Floetrol and Amsterdam Titanium White, 3 parts Floetrol to 1 part paint by volume. I'll just measure 3 teaspoons of Australian Floetrol and 1 teaspoon of paint. There is something about the Amsterdam Titanium White or zinc oxide that does work really well compared to other brands of paint, but you can use any other high density paint if you want. You could substitute American Floetrol as well, and I'll show you the recipe for that at the end of the video. Mix the cell activator well to a thin consistency. It barely leaves a mound or a trace. Then I'll add some to the consistency table. Lift it up so you can see how far it runs. Other popular paints are zinc oxide, a dark black, or Payne's gray, but any high density paint will work. For my pillow paint, I use PPG Multi-Pro and a little bit of GAC 800, in a ratio of about 1 cup paint to 1 teaspoon. It's a little easier. I've made a mark for the amount I want to make. One tip, don't have the paint store shake the paint. It puts too many air bubbles. Just use a stirring stick and stir it yourself. So I have 2 cups of PPG, so I am going to add 2 teaspoons of GAC 800 for this batch of pillow paint. The GAC 800 is thin and you don't want your pillow to get too thin, so don't use very much. You don't actually have to use any GAC 800, but it does help to make sure you don't have any cracking or grazing on your finished painting. Next, I do the consistency test again with a drop of cell activator and a drop of pillow paint so you can see the comparison. This pillow paint doesn't run very much, it's thick enough. But if you wanted to thicken the pillow paint, cover it with cheesecloth or hose and let it stand for 24 hours to thicken if needed. The pouring medium to mix with the paint colors is made with 3 parts Behr 8300 to 1 part polyacrylic. I use a scale for this, but you could measure. It doesn't have to be perfect because you'll need to adjust the consistency later anyway. I just found the scale a little easier. After adding the polyacrylic, I'll use a paint stick to stir or mix well. I do keep a little extra Behr 8300 and polyacrylic to use in the next step to thin or thicken. The last step is to add our paint colors and then thin or thicken to a consistency in between the pillow paint and cell activator that we already made. This varies a lot depending on the type of paint, brand, and even colors. 5 to 6 parts pouring medium to 1 part paint to start with, and then use the extra bare or polyacrylic if needed. This paint looks a little bit too thick, so I will add a little bit more polyacrylic to thin it. And then repeat these steps with my other paint colors. Now I'll repeat the consistency test with all of the paints. And if I need to make any adjustment to the colored paints, I can add more Behr 8300 or polyacrylic. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you do want all of the paint colors to be close in consistency to each other. I usually try to keep my metallics a little bit on the thicker side. But essentially, you want your paint colors to have a consistency between pillow paint and cell activator and be close to each other. Repeat this process as many times as needed until you're happy with the results. This looks pretty good in this example. This is how I made the table using Microsoft Word. Just inserted a table, changed the row height on the top row, inserted a round shape, copy and pasted that, and then set the size of my shape. Once you've done this a few times, you probably won't need to use the consistency table. But in the beginning, when you're learning, I wanted to include these steps in case it was helpful. There are other products that can be used or substituted for almost everything in this video, so I've included a few of those here. And last, I wanted to share a few tips of things I've learned along the way. Thank you again for watching. I hope this is helpful. Please like and subscribe and see my other tutorials on this channel.